Walks onto stage with energy, big smile, eye contact with audience. How to be happy. Let me tell you something right now. If you're looking for happiness in what's outside of you, you're screwed. Pause for effect. Crowd reaction. Serious tone kicks in. We live in a world where people are chasing cars, money, likes, approval, titles, plastic trophies. And then they wonder why they still feel empty. They wonder why, after the promotion, they're still not fulfilled. Why, after the relationship, they still feel alone. Why the bank account went up, but their soul stayed bankrupt. Listen to me. Happiness isn't found. It's generated. Happiness is not something you stumble upon. It's not hidden in a beach resort or inside a Lamborghini. Happiness is a decision, a muscle, a practice. It's built the same way a great body is built. With repetition, with discipline, with focus, and most of all, with intention. One, kill the myth, I'll be happy when. How many times have you said this? I'll be happy when I lose the weight. I'll be happy when I find the one. I'll be happy when I'm making 6 figures. No, you won't. You'll just move the finish line. And you'll rob yourself of joy in the now. You've got to stop delaying your happiness, stop negotiating with it. The truth, happiness comes when you grow, when you contribute. When you align your life with your values, not your ego. Your values to shift your focus, shift your life. Where focus goes, energy flows. You can focus on what's missing or what's present. You can focus on the pain or the power. You can focus on your problems or your possibilities. Gratitude isn't just a cute concept, it's a weapon. It's the ultimate antidote to fear, anger, depression. If you wake up and wire your mind for gratitude every single day, you'll realize you're already rich. Take 60 seconds right now, close your eyes, think of 3 things you're truly grateful for. It could be your family, your health, even just the fact that your heart is still beating. Feel that? That's happiness. 3. Live in alignment, not achievement. Achievement without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. You can climb the ladder of success only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. So what do? You get clear on who you are, on what matters to you, on what lights you up. Then you make sure your actions match that. If your soul wants connection, but your calendar is full of distractions, you're going to be empty. If your heart craves freedom, but you've caged yourself in other people's expectations, you're going to suffocate. Happiness is when your outer world reflects your inner truth. For emotion creates emotion. Want to feel better? Move. Want more joy? Jump. Want to be unstoppable? Get in motion. You can't sit still, scroll endlessly, binge negativity, and then wonder why you feel like crap. Get your physiology aligned with your psychology. Dance, run, scream, breathe, stretch. Do something that tells your body I'm alive. 5, decide. Happiness is your standard. Now you don't try to be happy, you decide. You say, from this moment on, I take full ownership of my state, my energy, my joy, my peace, my power. You say, I'm done outsourcing my happiness to people who don't care and circumstances I can't control. You say, I am the source, I am the storm, I am the creator of my own life. Pause, walk closer to the edge of the stage, lower voice slightly, intense eye contact. Happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you become. You become it by mastering your mind, by opening your heart, by serving something greater than yourself, by living fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. So don't wait, be happy now. Choose it, live it, own it, and then share it. Because when you shine, you give others permission to do the same. Let's go. Raise his hand in the air, energizing the audience. Say it with me. I am happy. I choose joy. I own my life. Happiness is generated, not found. This idea flips the script on everything we've been taught about joy, fulfillment, and inner peace. Most people live their entire lives believing that happiness is some sort of prize at the end of a long and exhausting journey. They treat it like a destination, something to reach once they've accomplished enough, acquired enough, impressed enough people, or achieved some arbitrary standard society has set for them. The truth is, that mindset keeps them trapped. It puts happiness on a leash, forever tied to something outside themselves. But happiness isn't something you stumble upon. It's not hiding in a bank account or a number on the scale or a person's approval. It's not in the corner office or the luxury vacation. Those things might give you a moment of pleasure, sure, but not lasting happiness. That kind of happiness, the kind that sticks, the kind that stays with you when everything around you is chaotic, doesn't come from anything external. It comes from within. It's built, it's created, it's generated on purpose. Think of happiness like energy. You don't wait for energy to show up. You generate it. You move your body, you get your blood flowing, and suddenly there it is. Happiness works the same way. You don't sit around and hope for it. You don't cross your fingers and wish for the stars to align. You decide to produce it. You act your way into it. You condition your mind, your body, and your habits to make happiness your natural state, not a rare occasion. And the first way you start generating it is by realizing that your state is a choice. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can absolutely control what you do with it. You can choose what to focus on. You can choose the meaning you assign to things. You can choose the emotions you practice, the thoughts you allow, and the habits you feed. That's where your power is. That's where your happiness begins, not in the world, but in your response to it. People often say, I'd be happy if I had a better job, or I'd be happy if I had more money, or I'd be happy if I had someone who truly loved me. And yet we all know people who have those things and are still miserable. We also know people with far less money, fewer possessions, more challenges, who are joyful, fulfilled, and peaceful. What's the difference? It's not what they have, it's what they do with what they have. It's what they focus on. It's what they decide every day when they wake up. You've probably met someone who always seems lit up. They walk into a room and there's a certain glow about them. They're not necessarily rich. They're not flawless, but they've tapped into something. They've figured out that life is better when you stop waiting and start creating. They understand that happiness is a skill, and they've practiced it. They've made it a habit to look for the good, to celebrate the small things, to turn obstacles into opportunities. That's not luck. That's mastery. Generating happiness means doing the work when it's not easy. It means choosing joy when it would be easier to complain. It means being grateful when you feel like nothing's going your way. It's smiling when no one's watching, dancing when no music is playing, and saying thank you when your plans fall apart. Because you've trained yourself to see life differently. You've trained yourself to find meaning even in the mess. You've built an internal world that isn't shaken by the external one. The people who live in happiness are not the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who refuse to stay stuck. They've made a decision that their mood, their mindset, and their mental state are not up for negotiation. They've stopped giving away their peace to problems they can't control. They've stopped waiting for a perfect moment and started creating powerful ones. They've built rituals. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's movement, maybe it's breathing deeply in the morning before the chaos begins. And those rituals generate emotional momentum. They wake up and prime themselves for a state of strength and gratitude, and because of that, they become magnetic. When you generate happiness from within, you become less needy, less reactive, and more powerful. You stop chasing things, and instead you start attracting the right things. Why? Because you're no longer coming from a place of lack. You're no longer desperate for something or someone to fix you. You're whole already, you're grounded. And that energy, that certainty, changes how you walk, how you speak, how you relate to the world. It radiates. But let's be real, it's not always easy. Life will throw things at you, pain, loss, failure. And in those moments, generating happiness isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's not about ignoring what's real. It's about anchoring into a deeper truth that even when life is messy, you still have access to meaning. You still have the power to find beauty in brokenness. You still have the ability to rise, to reframe, and to reclaim your emotional home. The problem is, most people don't train for happiness. They train for achievement. They train for productivity. But happiness, that's supposed to just show up magically. That's backwards. You've got to condition it. You've got to build emotional strength the same way you build physical strength, with consistency, with effort, and with intention. You don't go to the gym once and expect results. You go again and again. You push, you struggle, you sweat, and eventually you transform. The same goes for your happiness. So what does it look like practically to generate happiness? It looks like getting up and moving your body when you feel low energy. It looks like putting your phone down and being fully present with someone you love. It looks like catching your negative thoughts before they spiral and consciously replacing them with something better. It looks like celebrating progress, not just perfection. It looks like waking up and asking yourself, what am I excited about today? What can I appreciate right now? It looks like giving more than you take, growing more than you settle, and being honest with yourself about the life you're building. You don't wait to feel good, you do what makes you feel good. You don't wait for someone to love you, you love yourself radically and show up with that love. You don't wait for a perfect moment, you become the moment. You dance, you breathe, you connect. You serve. And in the middle of all that, happiness shows up. Because you created space for it, because you became the kind of person who attracts it, because you generated it. I'll be happy when is one of the most dangerous phrases a person can repeat to themselves. It sounds innocent, even motivational. It's dressed up like ambition, like drive, like a plan for the future. But underneath, it's poison. It teaches your brain to tie happiness to a condition, something that must happen before you're allowed to feel good. It makes your joy conditional, your peace negotiable, and your self-worth dependent on circumstances you may never fully control. That phrase becomes a mental contract that says, until X happens, I don't get to be happy. And the tragedy is that for many people, X keeps changing. The goalposts keep moving, and happiness stays just out of reach. People say it all the time, almost without thinking. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when I finally buy a house. I'll be happy when I meet the right person. I'll be happy when I lose the weight. On the surface, it feels like a logical roadmap. Achieve the goal, receive the reward. But what's really happening is the creation of a habit, the habit of postponing joy, the habit of outsourcing fulfillment to something external, something uncertain, something in the future. And when that becomes a pattern, it's not just one thing you're waiting for, it's everything. One day it's the job, the next it's the income, then the relationship, then the recognition, and before you know it, you've spent your whole life chasing something that was available to you all along. There's a deep psychological trap in this mindset. When happiness becomes conditional, it also becomes fragile. It means your emotional well-being is dependent on something you can win or lose. Something you might attain only to find it wasn't what you thought it would be. And when that happens, when you finally reach the milestone and you still don't feel whole, it's disorienting. You start asking questions like, why don't I feel the way I thought I would? Or is something wrong with me? That's not because you failed to reach your goal. It's because you outsourced your happiness to something incapable of sustaining it. What most people don't realize is that the I'll be happy when mindset trains your nervous system to delay happiness even when the moment arrives. You reach the goal and your brain is already locked into the next target. The moment is never enough. You may even feel a high for a few minutes, maybe even a day, but soon it fades. The mind returns to its familiar script. Okay, what's next? And just like that, happiness is delayed again. The process repeats endlessly, and fulfillment becomes a moving target you can never hit. This belief system is reinforced by culture. Everywhere we look, we're told that happiness is waiting for us. On the other side of success, in a new relationship, behind a new product, at the end of a perfectly curated lifestyle. Advertisements, social media, and even well-meaning friends contribute to this illusion. We're bombarded with images of people who seem to have made it and are rewarded with happiness as a result. The problem is we don't see the behind the scenes. We don't see their inner struggles, their doubts, or the reality that even after checking all the boxes, many of them still feel empty. We buy into the illusion And in doing so, we delay our own joy. But the truth is this: every time you tell yourself, I'll be happy when, you are declaring that your current self is not enough. You're placing your power in the hands of the future. You're putting joy in the passenger seat and letting life circumstances drive the car. That kind of thinking strips you of the one thing you always have control over, your state of being. It teaches your mind to live in the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that gap becomes a source of stress, frustration, and anxiety. When you live in a state of almost, you rob yourself of the present. You overlook the beauty of now because you're obsessed with what's next. You miss the tiny moments that matter, the laugh with a friend, the taste of your morning coffee, the quiet feeling of peace when you take a breath. Because you're mentally living in a version of the future that hasn't even happened yet. And most dangerously, you wire your brain to believe that happiness is not your default state, but rather a reward you must earn. That wiring becomes deeper over time. It becomes your emotional baseline. Every new goal adds another layer. You become someone who constantly needs the next win to feel okay. You become addicted to progress, not because progress is bad, but because you've attached your self-worth to it. Without progress, you feel lost. You feel stagnant. And that creates emotional volatility because some seasons of life are for growth, but others are for stillness. If your happiness is tied only to the peaks, the valleys will feel unbearable. People also use I'll be happy when as a way to avoid doing the real inner work. It becomes an excuse to postpone self-reflection. It's easier to believe that happiness is waiting for you outside than to look inward and ask hard questions. It's easier to chase goals than to sit quietly with yourself and uncover the beliefs, stories, and patterns that are really causing your pain. Chasing something external keeps you busy, it keeps you distracted, but real happiness, lasting happiness, comes from self-awareness, from self-acceptance, and from consciously choosing how you show up every single day, regardless of what you have or don't have. When happiness is no longer something you have to earn, it becomes something you get to live. You stop bargaining with the future. You stop holding your joy hostage. You begin to recognize that you have everything you need to feel whole right here, right now. You can want more, absolutely, but you no longer need more to feel good. That's the difference. That's freedom. When you no longer tell yourself, I'll be happy when, you start asking, how can I be happy now? That question opens the door to presence. It opens the door to gratitude. It brings your focus back to the only moment you ever truly have, this one. The more you catch yourself thinking in terms of when, the more power you have to shift your mindset. Awareness is the first step. Notice the pattern, interrupt it, replace it. Start asking better questions. Start measuring your life not just by what you've accomplished, but by how you feel along the way. Start choosing joy without permission, without delay, without needing a reason. Start celebrating progress over perfection, presence over pressure, and alignment over achievement. Start giving yourself the experience of happiness, not someday, not when the stars align, not after you've done enough to deserve it, but right now as you are. Gratitude is the gateway to joy. It's not just a nice sentiment, not just something you do on Thanksgiving or write in a journal when things are going well. Gratitude is a powerful emotional state that shifts your entire nervous system, rewires your brain, and changes how you experience life. It takes you out of survival mode and into a place of expansion. When you live in gratitude, you change what you notice, what you attract, and how you respond to everything around you. It's the most accessible form of happiness because it's always available. You don't need more money, a better body, or the perfect relationship to feel grateful. You just need to direct your focus. The human brain is not naturally wired for gratitude. It's wired for survival. It's constantly scanning for what's missing, what's wrong, what could go wrong. That's how we evolved, and that's why stress, anxiety, and fear feel so automatic. But if you don't train your mind to look for what's good, it will default to what's bad. It will search for problems to solve, threats to avoid, and gaps to fill. Gratitude interrupts that pattern. It stops the spiral. It forces your mind to focus on what's right instead of what's wrong. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's not magic, it's conditioning. Most people think happiness comes first and then they'll feel grateful, but it's actually the reverse. Gratitude is the foundation. You don't wait to be grateful until life is perfect. You become grateful and life starts to feel more perfect, not because your circumstances changed, but because your perception did. That's the shift. That's the real power. Gratitude doesn't change the world, it changes the way you see the world. And when you change the way you see things, the things you see start to change. Gratitude puts you in a state of presence, it stops time, it brings you back into your body, into the moment, into what is rather than what's missing. Doesn't mean you ignore your goals, it doesn't mean you stop growing or settling for less than you deserve. It means you stop sacrificing today for the illusion of a better tomorrow. It means you stop measuring your joy by your progress and start measuring it by your perspective. You can have huge ambitions and still be deeply grateful for where you are. In fact, that's where the real magic happens, when you combine hunger for more with appreciation for now. The most joyful people on the planet aren't the ones with the most comfort or ease. They're the ones who have trained themselves to see beauty in the ordinary. They don't take small moments for granted. They don't need everything to be perfect to feel peace. They've learned how to find light in the dark, lessons in the pain, and meaning in the mundane. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by choosing gratitude over and over again, especially when it's hardest. Especially when life doesn't make sense. Especially when things fall apart. Because in those moments, gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a lifeline. You can't feel fear and gratitude at the same time. You can't feel anger and gratitude at the same time. You can't feel scarcity and gratitude at the same time. Your nervous system can't hold those conflicting emotions together. So the moment you step into gratitude, you displace everything that's weighing you down, you rise above it, you become bigger than your circumstances. That's why gratitude isn't just positive thinking, it's emotional mastery. It's not about pretending life is perfect, it's about seeing the perfection that's already there, even if it's buried beneath layers of challenge and chaos. People often underestimate the power of small shifts. They think they need a big breakthrough to feel better. But one thought of gratitude can redirect your entire day. One moment of appreciation can bring you back into alignment. And when you start stacking those moments, when you make it a daily practice, it becomes your new normal. You stop looking for reasons to complain. You stop comparing your life to others. You stop living in lack because you've trained your mind to live in abundance no matter what's happening around you. Gratitude is also one of the most powerful tools for connection. When you express appreciation for someone, not just silently, but out loud, you create depth, you create safety, and you create energy. People feel seen, they feel valued, they feel understood. And in a world that's constantly trying to divide and distract, that kind of connection is rare. It's powerful. Gratitude brings people together. It breaks down walls, it opens hearts. And the more you give it, the more it grows. Because gratitude multiplies. The more you focus on what's good, the more good you see. The more good you see, the more good you create. That's the cycle. That's the rhythm. That's the state you want to live in. And it's always a choice. Every day you wake up and you get to decide where to direct your attention. You can focus on what you lack, what's wrong, and what didn't go your way. Or you can focus on what you do have, what is working, and what makes your life meaningful right now. That doesn't mean you ignore your pain. It means you bring gratitude into your pain. It means you allow both to coexist. Because sometimes the deepest gratitude is born from the hardest moments. It's forged in adversity. It's discovered in the contrast. And once you've touched that kind of gratitude, superficial joy doesn't satisfy you anymore. You want real joy, deep joy, the kind that doesn't depend on conditions. Gratitude is also the antidote to entitlement. When you're grateful, you stop expecting the world to owe you something. You stop feeling like you're a victim of life and start acting like a creator of it. You recognize the blessings you've received, the people, the lessons, the second chances, and you stop taking them for granted. That shift in energy creates a ripple effect. You show up differently, you lead differently, you love differently, because you're no longer moving through life with a sense of not enough. You're grounded. You're full. You're generous. Even in your ambition, gratitude keeps you centered. It keeps you grounded in what matters. It reminds you why you started. It protects you from burnout, from comparison, from the endless hunger that leads to emptiness. It allows you to enjoy the journey, not just chase the result. It turns goals into a game, not a burden. It transforms striving into something sacred. Because when you're grateful, every step becomes meaningful. Every challenge becomes a teacher. Every day becomes a gift. Even the hard ones. You don't need more to feel grateful. You need awareness. You need presence. You need a willingness to stop and see what's already in front of you. The people who practice this every day aren't lucky. They're intentional. They've built a mindset that isn't easily shaken. They've trained their focus to look for light even in darkness. They've decided that gratitude isn't something they feel occasionally. It's who they are. It's how they live. It's the filter through which they see everything else. Pain is inevitable. Growth is optional. Every single one of us goes through struggle, some of it visible, some of it hidden beneath the surface. But what separates those who live empowered lives from those who feel stuck, broken, or defeated isn't the absence of pain, it's their relationship with it. Most people try to avoid pain at all costs. They numb it, run from it, deny it, distract themselves from it, hoping that if they ignore it long enough, it'll go away. But pain doesn't just disappear, it waits, it lingers, and the more you suppress it, the more control it gains, until one day it shows up in the form of anxiety, resentment, disconnection, even disease. The truth is, pain that's not processed becomes suffering, and suffering is what happens when you resist what is. But there's another path, one that requires courage, one that demands honesty, one that doesn't just help you survive pain, but transforms you through it. Because pain has a purpose, it's feedback, it's instruction. It's a signal from life that says something needs your attention. Something is asking to be seen, heard, healed, or changed. Pain reveals your values. It shines a light on where you've been living out of alignment. It shows you where you've compromised, abandoned yourself, or held on to something that's no longer serving you. If you're willing to lean in instead of run, you'll discover that pain can be one of your greatest teachers. Think about it. Some of your deepest insights, your most meaningful transformations, didn't come during the easy moments. They came when life broke you open, when you were stripped bare, when you had no choice but to face what you'd been avoiding. That breakup that shattered your identity, that loss that brought you to your knees, that failure that humbled you to your core. Those moments felt like the end, but they were actually the beginning of a deeper, more authentic you. Because pain doesn't just destroy, it reveals. It peels back the layers. It burns away the masks. It introduces you to the parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. Most people think they need to get rid of the pain to be happy. But the truth is, you don't need less pain. You need more meaning. You need to find a reason that makes the pain worth it. Because when you attach purpose to your struggle, it stops being a weight that drags you down and becomes fuel that pushes you forward. Pain without meaning leads to despair. Pain with meaning leads to transformation. And meaning isn't something you find, it's something you create. You choose to see your pain as a path. You choose to see it as a sculptor shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, deeper, more compassionate. There's a power that comes from owning your pain, from saying, this happened and I'm not going to let it define me. I'm going to let it refine me. When you do that, you shift from being a victim to being a creator. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what is this here to teach me? That question opens a doorway. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Because even if you can't control what happened to you, you always get to decide what it means and how you respond. That's real power, not control over life, but control over your state, your story, your soul. When you embrace pain as a teacher, you also stop being afraid of failure. You stop fearing rejection, criticism, and discomfort because you've already been through worse And you didn't just survive, you grew. You carry the proof in your bones. That's what makes you resilient. That's what makes you unstoppable. You no longer need perfect circumstances to feel strong. You've learned how to find strength within, how to alchemize pain into progress. And that kind of strength can't be faked. It's earned, it's embodied, it's unshakable. And it creates empathy. Once you've suffered deeply, once you've faced your own darkness, you become more sensitive to the pain of others. You stop judging so quickly. You stop needing to be right all the time. You start listening more, holding space more, showing up with your whole heart. Because you get it. You've been there. And your scars become reminders that healing is possible. Your story becomes someone else's survival guide. Your vulnerability becomes a gift. Not because you're trying to be inspiring, but because you're living in truth. And people can feel that, they're starving for it. But to get there, you have to be willing to sit with the pain, not bypass it, not turn it into a quick lesson before you've really felt it, not slap affirmations on top of it. You have to let it move through you. You have to grieve what was lost. You have to feel the anger, the disappointment, the confusion. You have to be willing to be cracked open, to let the walls come down, to admit that you don't have it all figured out. That's not weakness. That's strength in its rawest, realest form. And it's in that surrender that the healing begins. The paradox is that when you finally stop resisting the pain, it loses its grip. When you stop trying to fix it or escape it, it starts to shift, starts to move. Emotions are energy. They're meant to flow, not stagnate. And when you allow them to flow, when you create space for them without judgment, they begin to integrate. They begin to inform you. They show you what matters. They point you back to your truth. Pain isn't the enemy. Unfelt pain is. Suppressed pain is. Misunderstood pain is. But pain that's honored, explored, and listened to becomes one of the greatest sources of wisdom you'll ever know. This is the path of emotional mastery. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of perspective. Not perfection, but progress. Not trying to avoid breakdowns, but using them as breakthroughs. You stop fearing the storm because you realize you are the storm. You are not fragile. You are not broken. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by how you rise, how you choose, how you love in the face of it all. And every time you choose growth over bitterness, responsibility over blame, truth over comfort, you reclaim a piece of your power. So many people spend their lives trying to get comfortable. But comfort is not the goal. Growth is. Fulfillment is. Purpose is. And none of those come without challenge. The gym doesn't make you stronger by giving you ease. It makes you stronger through resistance. Life works the same way. It gives you the exact conditions required to become the person you're meant to be. Not the person you were told to be, not the one who plays small or hides from pain, but the one who walks through fire and comes out forged, grounded, unshakable, alive. When you stop running from pain, it becomes your compass. It shows you where healing is needed. It reveals your deepest desires, your core values, your most authentic self. It strips away the noise and the distractions and forces you to pay attention, to slow down, to wake up. And in that awakening, you discover a version of yourself that's more real, more powerful, more alive than the one who was chasing comfort, avoiding struggle, and playing it safe. You don't just heal, you evolve. You don't just survive, you awaken. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. You can achieve all the external markers of success, money, fame, influence, recognition, and still feel empty. You can climb the mountain, reach the top, and realize you were climbing the wrong one, because if you don't define what fulfillment means to you, the world will define it for you. And the world will tell you to chase more and more status, more stuff, more approval, more applause. But none of those things guarantee that deep soul-level satisfaction we all crave. Fulfillment is internal. It's not about how things look on the outside. It's about how they feel on the inside. It's alignment. It's integrity. It's waking up and knowing your life means something, not just to others, but to you. So many people confuse achievement with fulfillment. They think if they just hit the next goal, the next milestone, then they'll finally feel the way they want to feel. They live in the when-then trap. When I make 6 figures, then I'll feel secure. When I find the perfect relationship, then I'll feel loved. When I lose the weight, then I'll feel confident. But when never comes. Because every time you hit a goal, the mind moves the target. It's a moving finish line. And if your happiness is always tied to outcomes, you'll never feel at peace. You'll always be chasing, striving, and grinding, thinking fulfillment is just one more achievement away. True fulfillment is about living a life of meaning, purpose, and contribution. It's about using your gifts in a way that lights you up and serves others. It's about being fully alive, not just going through the motions, not just doing what's expected, not just checking the boxes. Fulfillment happens when your values are aligned with your actions, when who you are matches how you live. That's why it doesn't look the same for everyone. For one person, it might be building a business that changes lives. For another, it might be raising kids with love and presence. For someone else, it might be creating art, exploring the world, mentoring others, serving a cause. Fulfillment is personal. You don't need to copy someone else's version of success. You need to define your own. The most fulfilled people aren't the ones with the fewest problems. They're the ones who know what matters most and make decisions based on that. They have clarity, they have intention. They say no to what's good so they can say yes to what's great. They don't chase everything, they focus on what makes them feel alive. And that aliveness, that sense of deep purpose and alignment, that's where fulfillment lives. It's not in the next car or the next contract. It's in the moment you realize you're doing what you're meant to do, being who you're meant to be, and making the kind of impact only you can make. And fulfillment isn't passive. It's not something you stumble into. It's created, it's built, it's chosen. It's the result of intentional living, of asking yourself the hard questions and being willing to make the hard choices. What do I value? What do I believe in? What legacy do I want to leave? Who do I want to become? These are the questions most people avoid because they're uncomfortable, because they challenge the status quo, because they force us to confront the gap between where we are and where we want to be. But without those questions, we drift, we perform, we conform. We check off goals that don't matter and wonder why we still feel empty. Fulfillment also comes from growth, not just external growth, but inner growth. Expansion of the soul, evolution of identity. You're not here to stay the same. You're here to evolve, to stretch, to become. And every time you break through a limiting belief, every time you face a fear, every time you take a step toward your higher self, you create a sense of fulfillment that no one can take from you. Because it's not dependent on results, it's rooted in progress. It's rooted in the feeling that you're living your truth, not just talking about it. And fulfillment comes from contribution, from knowing that your life matters beyond yourself, that you're not just here to accumulate, but to elevate, that your time, your energy, your love, your service makes a difference. Contribution doesn't have to mean saving the world. It can be as simple as showing up fully for one person, using your gifts in a way that uplifts, giving without needing anything in return. There's something about giving that multiplies your joy. When you focus only on yourself, your world gets smaller. But when you contribute, your world expands, your heart expands. And that expansion is fulfillment. But none of this happens by default. The world is loud, it's fast, it's distracting. It will pull you in 100 directions if you let it. That's why fulfillment requires you to slow down, to get quiet, to reconnect with yourself, to ask, am I living in alignment with who I really am? Not who your parents wanted you to be, not who your culture told you to be, who you truly are, deep down, when all the noise fades away. That's where you find the path to fulfillment. It's not out there, it's within. And the more you tune into that inner voice, the more you live by that compass, the more fulfilled you become. Fulfillment also comes from presence. from actually experiencing your life instead of rushing through it. You could have the perfect partner, the perfect